Welcome to Galactic Grandmother, Heart to Heart. My name is April, and my special guest today is Todd Medina of Soulogy. He is really one of the OGs of spiritual broadcasting, and I am so grateful to him for all the information, the interviews, the music, all of the prolific production of things that he's put out for soul consciousness. And he has got some interesting experiences that we can talk about today. And so I'm so grateful for you to take the time to have a conversation with me today. Thank you, Todd.
Oh, well, thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be here and collaborate with you. I'm very excited to have this conversation.
Yes, we started out with an interesting conversation before we even got started here. I usually do ask people what contributed the most along your spiritual journey. What contributed the most to who you are today?
Well, that's a really tough question because there's so many elements to it. But I'd have to say, and I feel like a lot of people could relate because like for instance on the Soulogy podcast. I mean, we've hit. I don't have the exact number, but I know it's over 5,000 now. And most of those stories, people have a wake up experience. Many of those cases, there was a succession of traumas leading up to it, or one big trauma like a car accident or near death or whatever. But I think what I'm trying to say is that on or about 2012, and for me it was May 30th, 2011. Okay, but on or about 2012, something came in the door. Too many people have their stories, and some of these go back to the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, but really something turned on around 2011, 2012. And so when that information came in the door, 6 weeks later, by my own choice, I knew I had to go live on the streets in Houston, Texas. I'd lost everything, family, prestige, reputation, vehicles, careers, money, home. I mean, nothing. And I say that I'm not in victim consciousness. I'm saying this because I believe that it just played that way out for me. But everybody had that level of something coming in that was so atypical and unconventional, but they followed it. And so, for some reason, my human knew, and it was due to what I would call some divine episodes, where the universe is saying, "Hey, we're not going to let you go on this." But I hit the streets with a suitcase, a backpack, a briefcase, and a box of mementos, and $175, which was gone in 2 days. And yeah, I went to find my soul, and I think that was the most impactful point because it served me over and over and over again. So for about 2 years, I was technically, by society's definition, homeless. But from the soul perspective, I feel it was my soul getting through to my human aspect and saying, hey, you want to get as much of this out of the way as possible, then here we go. And so that served me very well because as we just went through this solstice, which everybody's saying this is the biggest one ever, and it was big for me. I got triggered, which I hadn't been triggered in months, which is an activation and an opportunity. But what I'm saying is I see without judgment some struggles and challenges and fluctuations that people have that I'm not impervious to, but I don't go through a lot of it at all because because I knocked out a bunch of it up front, walking around in a constant communion at a human level, having a big hole in my heart, uh, and just step by step. That was literally my mantra. My mantra was one more step and, one more anchoring or embodiment of my soul and just constant mantras and meditations and communion. Um, in all types of environments for a couple of years. But it really did impact me, and I've never been asked that question, but now that I have time to reflect on it, I feel very firm with that answer. Thank you.
Prior to losing it all, were you getting hints? Was anything coming up for you that you can look back on now to see, what would you say, discontented with your life and the way it was going? Was your soul being filled prior to that?
I would say yes. My soul was my human. Where do you have the difference? I mean, my my life was by society's standards
Mhm.
gone from the penthouse of energetic um, of an energetic field in terms of the stereotypical conventional definitions of, oh, he's successful. I had gone from that to the outhouse. Now, from my standpoint, I had beautiful children in my home. I had I had a partner at the time uh, who was kind of tapped into the other side, um, and yeah, and I was emotionally, physically, mentally, financially strapped on my last leg, and I had gone from being the um, I guess you would say the apex predator in my industry in this country. Um, and I'd gone from the most coveted potential senior manager, etc., in the industry I was in to being on welfare with four kids in the house uh, and a $2,000 truck. And but to answer your question, I was finding fulfillment every single day. However, beginning about 2 years prior to May 30th, 2011, at 1:11 in the morning, I started getting some signals. And I didn't, although I'd always been very spiritual and very much um, connecting with my soul in many ways every day, um, since I was a kid, since as long as I can remember, um, I wasn't really, it's kind of like these things happen. And if you have one happen and then another happens and you go, oh, wow, that's kind of a coincidence. But if you take them all and you put them together, they all line up. And you go, wait a minute. And it took me a while. It took me a while because that was in 2009 summer. So it would be essentially 2011 summer. And I have this, to me, an extraordinary encounter, wake up experience. 6 weeks later, I go on the streets by my own choice. But it was about 6 months later. Um, I always say that spirit walk I went on for 2 years was in three phases. The first one was 7 months. And about 30 days before that 7 months was up, I finally figured it out. And the way I figured it out was I was renting a room at a friend's house for the week. I was cooking for him, and I think I paid him $100. And he said, you can stay here for a week. And I had a big decision coming that was presented to me. A decision that would kind of, as we would use today's terms, pull me back into the lower vibrational field, you might say. But I was also very human and very much open-hearted, and it was love-based, as all of our successes and failures are love-based, right? If we really think about it, not to get caught up on those words. So so I cooked dinner, and then I was going to go for a walk and think about this. Now I'm 7 months into having quite a few episodes, divine episodes. I call them divine episodes, but nothing that put me over the top. So I go for this walk. I come back. I sit down on the edge of the bed, just like I'm sitting here, and there's a warm tumbler, that's probably half the size of this bottle. Uh, it's a thick tumbler, and it's full of, or half full, of warm iced tea. And I sit down, I put my hands together, and I said, "Can I trust this path?" And that glass exploded and shattered all over me. So I'm covered in glass and covered in tea, warm tea. And in that moment, I knew, and I finally bought into it, and I said, "Archangel Michael, you've been tapping me on the shoulder for a while because I get this montage of all these different things that had occurred, and things like pictures flying off the wall or chandelier, whatever crystals slamming together, other things too." But in that moment, I knew, and I was like, and I literally said to myself, "You are beating at a higher vibration. It doesn't matter what anyone says. It doesn't matter that you're homeless. It doesn't matter nothing. You know your truth, and the universe knows your truth. Go get them." Was kind of the deal. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So
So that's when I figured it out.
where
Yeah.
did you go from there?
Well, it was interesting, because 30 days later, well, I was presented with a choice to go back to the old, and it was no choice to make at all because I'm like, I don't care. I'll be living just the way I'm living. And so about a month later, I went to a hotel. I got some money to because I started selling meat door to door about 5 months into this 7 month period. So I was making a little bit of money. And so I went into this hotel room, and I took, this is just my way at that time, I took some marijuana. I took a couple of other illicit things and drugs, I guess you would say, chemicals. I took a bunch of beer and some whiskey. And, but I know that may sound a little bit off base, but consciously, to go in and meet every demon, because what was happening to me every day is I was basically in the dark and the light. I was having vivid experiences with what you might call light beings, the kind that we liked to run into, but I was also going toe to toe with demons, and I mean that metaphorically and otherwise. I was spending 6 out of 7 nights a week probably. I had taught myself to dance at 49 years old, and was dancing hip hop in the black clubs and in the electronic clubs, and was kind of a fixture in the underground scene for a while during that period. Got to know a lot of the DJs, but again, it's a club scene. It's got different elements than a church, but when the reality is they're really the same thing. So I was in certain environments and certain situations that invited these encounters. And I was aware of it. It was weird. It was like I was walking right down the middle of the road. But I went into this motel room, and I rented it for, I think I was able to sustain for like, I want to say about 10 days. I think I got like an unemployment check or something. But I went in with the determination not to come out, and to ask and receive it all, not just the fluffy love and light, but I want to see it all. Bring me what you got. Bring me your reptilians. Bring me your draconians. Bring me whatever you want to bring me. I am a soul. And then, of course, the other side too. And it took about it was 10 days. I went in on the 2nd, and I got out on the 10th. So whatever that is, 9 days, 8 9 days, and and it was a rough period. There was a lot of dimensional interactions that I can never prove to anybody. But I would say it was the first time that I truly balanced, to the point of my wherewithal at that time, dark and light. And I balanced it, and I never forget, I came out of it, and I took a picture of myself, and I looked amazing. I was like, whoa, wow. And then literally, I turned on the phone and somebody put a post up. I need some help moving. Can you come help me? It was a friend of the family. And boom, things just started happening. So the second phase was marked by serious emissaries and events that just exploded. Just so many different divine episodes. A certain guide from the other side that was a teenage boy, lived to be a teenage boy in this lifetime that I was connected to, that I didn't know until this person or this soul visited me. But lots of interactions over that second phase of the spirit walk, the second 6 or 7 months, was you know he'd already been there, but Jesus, Yeshua, Magdalene, Archangel Michael, guardian angel team of 24, six biblical prophets, and then three spirit guides that were relatives of mine in past American indigenous lives, right? From one particular life. And, animals, other things happen too, but yeah, I don't even know how I got I got onto that. Oh, you asked me what happened next. Yeah, so that was kind of the second phase. Uh, it was a really powerful phase, and then at the end of that summer, about a year after my wake up, that was May 30th, 2011, 1:11 in the morning, my my legal wife at the time, um, she died in a car accident. My children from that marriage were with her, and I was trying to get on my feet. I was working manual labor, and again, this is after being a you know high level senior executive for different companies and so on. And so I got them back for a week, and I was living in a one room in a mobile home adjacent to a school. And I got them back from Florida, and every night I had them in my arms, and I would do my thing with them there, and I'd say, I'm calling in the Mother Goddess and Father God. I'm calling in these six prophets. I'm calling in Magdalene and Yeshua, and so on and so on. And I, held them in my arms while they told me, when's this going to be over, Daddy? And so I made a tough choice and asked my family to take them until I could get on my feet. And I would say that was the end of the second part of the spirit walk. The third part would end with me getting myself back to Houston, because at the time my family took them. They kind of blackballed me. So I said, you know what? I'm not giving up. So I think I had about $235. I was in Dallas. I caught a bus, a double decker bus, and I don't know how much that was. It had to be like, I don't know, 150 or something. I don't know. I just know that what happened was I got on that bus. I arrived in Houston at midnight. I told my buddy that, hey, can I sleep, at your house? He's like, no problem. I get in at midnight. I take a cab to his apartment. His door's locked. He's asleep. I jump over the patio fence and sleep on the concrete in his patio. And get up the next morning. He came out and said, hey, man, what's going on? I said, yeah, I'm here. And I just went in, took a shower, grabbed my bag. I just had one bag now. And then I took a bus to go sell to the other side of town to go sell meat. And I don't know if you've ever run into those folks, and I'm proud to be one of them. But you knock on the door, and, hello, ma'am, you like steak or chicken? Be right back. So it's a very interesting environment, one that I really valued. The people that I worked with, 12, 15 people there, were the outcast of society. They were the drug addicts. They were the ex-cons. They were the PTSD vets. It was very impactful. In fact, the first time I walked into that place, during the first part of the spirit walk, I walked into the back like a garage thing, and I remember looking at all of them, and I saw this, which I see often, this golden white light formed over them, and I heard my soul say, "You are no better and you're no worse." But anyway, to conclude that first day back to Houston, and kind of where I started the third phase, was I took a bus and a cab or walked or whatever and got to this meat selling place, showed up before everybody got there, told them I wanted to go back to work. They put me in a truck. I went out and did my thing and earned $50 because when I got there, I had $5 left. That's all I had. And I'm pulling my suitcase. Go to work, make $50, and this is in the, industrial part of town. Let's put it that way. so we go to work, get off work. I roll my suitcase to a motel I see 2 doors down, and as I go into the motel, it says $45 a night. I've got 50. Okay. And I walk in, and it's the craziest thing because it's a whole other part of town. I walk in, and as soon as I walk in the door, this young woman says to me, "Mr. Medina, we remember you. Hey, so-and-so, come up here. Guess who it is?" And this other girl came, and she's like, "Oh my God, how are you doing? What's going on?" Well, I had stayed in this Motel 6 during the first couple of parts of the Spirit Walk very often. And these 2 ladies worked there on the other side of town. Now here I am, and I walk in, several months later on the other side of town in a private motel, and they're working the counter. And they knew my story. That's the thing. They knew everything about me. They even watched me get pulled out by 6 cops of the Motel 6, broke my door down. That's a whole other story. So they knew my story. And I was literally running just as I had on the street. I was still there. Every step I take. I got $50 in my pocket. It's dark here. I'm on the bad side of town. I'm going to walk to this hotel, and hopefully I can get a room for 50. And if not, I'll walk to the next one. So I said, hey, this is where I'm at. I just got back a day ago, and I said, look, I just want to tell you, I've got $50, and I don't know how much the tax is on 45. And they said, Todd, we won't charge you tax. Just pay us the 45 and go next door to Denny's. They have the $4 meal and the $3 meal and all that, and get yourself something to eat. So that's how the third phase of the Spirit Walk started. And it ended with me coming off the streets and getting my 2 little girls back.
Ooh.
And so, yeah, that was the first. That would be the first 2 years of my reawakening.
And so how old were they when you got them back?
They would have been like 10 and 11. Yeah, they're 14 months apart.
So you
And
you were with them until they graduated high school, or?
well, what happened was the mom had died,
Mm-hmm.
obviously transitioned, and so there was a death benefit that was, I want to say, like 1,100 a month, and my mom, and again, this is typical families, dysfunction and this and that, highs and lows and all that, and I was kind of, again, blackballed and so on, but my mom had a pretty good sized house, and she had a wing in the back with a bedroom and its own bathroom, and then a half bath in the back, which was kind of like an office thing. She said, "You can come live with me, and you hand me your check," which was certainly fair. And I had food stamps to feed the girls, and so I was a single dad, and in those conditions, and I'd been instructed 2 years earlier to open a group called Soulogy. And for that time I was on the streets, I had a little flip phone, and I would just write prose and poetry and conscious rap, and I would just send them up. No pictures, no nothing. And I think at that time, summer of 2013, there might have been, you know, maybe 1,500 people in it or something like that. But when I did that, we did this for a year. Then my mother gave me a laptop, and even though she didn't understand everything about me, she gave me the laptop, and I started to take my words and put pictures, images, and put the words on the images way before GIFs and all that stuff. And so I did that for about a year, and then after a year, my stepfather had a townhouse that became vacant, and we just converted that to uh, here, I'll pay, this will be my rent, and we'll move into the townhouse, and the girls and I will start from there. And so what ended up happening was that's where I got the download for SoulogyOneStudios. And now I'm in this townhouse, so we got 3 beds, and that's about it, and a kitchen table. And so, I just, it came in just like the original Soulogy name, a couple years, 3 years earlier. And they just said, and I said, well, what am I going to do here? And they said, well, you're going to play some music, and you're going to talk, and you're going to go live. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, I mean, I've done public speaking all my life, and it's not that. It's just like, well, you're talking about me going out onto, like the open airwaves here, and I don't even have internet. Like, I'm having to record videos, walk up to the grocery store, use their 1G, and load them up. I mean, so it's interesting because once that decision was made, over the next 4 days, people brought me all this furniture out of nowhere. And I had like 6 couches downstairs. I moved downstairs, created a studio with what little I had, and then it kind of progressed from there. And it took it took a while. We moved in summer of 2014, and it would be the summer of 2015 when I'd start doing the first videos. And so I literally sat on the couch for the entire summer, talking to, as people say, my team or my soul, and was like, "No, what do you want me to do? Like, you want me to do what?" So I never got, and you can probably relate to this. You never get clear cut. You do get clear cut stuff, but what I mean is they always leave a little bit unknown, or the how to, or and that's where we come in, I believe. So I remember what ended up happening was it was a Sunday, and it was late August. I think it was the 31st of August. And I'm in the studio every night. I'm working. I'm just not broadcasting, and I'm having these experiences every night. And so I'm really in my own little world. But so I'm sitting on the couch, and I thought, well, what? You can't sit here any longer. Like, what are you going to do? So I grabbed the phone, and I clicked live, and I pushed the stereo, and the doors break on through to the other side came on, and I just started doing it. I just started doing the, what I call reaching, not preaching, and then, I mean, I think I did 400 solos in the first 9 months,
Wow.
and yeah, and but that was, yeah, so that was 4 years into it. And then about that time, I met a woman on the other side of the world. And again, now I've started having these, what I would call divine episodes, synchronicities, certain things that you just can't refute. Now I'm having them with somebody else. And so now it's really starting to, kind of just expand exponentially. And again, as the individual goes, so goes the collective. This was also seeming to parallel all of our journeys at the time, from what I could tell in the work I was doing, because I was putting up a lot of posts. It's interesting because Facebook started putting up how many posts a person has if you look on the top of the page, right? And when they started doing that about 2 months ago, I've been shadow banned constantly, by the way, and suppressed. I had, and I never, I didn't know, but it was something like 44,000 posts,
Whoa.
some sort of another over this, whatever it is, say 10-year period, a lot of posts though. I've done as many as 200 or 300 in a day, just depending on what I'm working on. And then the funny thing is I saw it a couple of days ago and they had removed, like, I don't even know, like over half. So, and I know they've been removing a lot of stuff because their memories are, their memory bank is getting tight. But yeah, so yeah, I just kept going from there. This woman who became my partner, she said to me one day, as women will do, I think it was about, we met on September the 3rd at 3:33 in the morning, by the way, in 2015. And immediately mergings occurred. Herioscamos, I mean, it was like that. Anyway, about 2 months into it, she says, it's not all about you. And I said, what do you mean, And she goes, why don't you talk to other people? And actually, the way that originated was her and I would spend hours and hours talking. And we would say, wouldn't this be cool? Because I know people are talking about this stuff privately all over the world.
Mhm.
Wouldn't it be cool if we could, put our conversation out there? And she's like, no, 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 no. No, you go talk to other people. And that's how that started. So it went from there in 2015. She came over about a year and a half later, and we went on about a 10 or 12 week, and again, many divine episodes. Now I'm sharing it with someone else. Other people are witnessing it. I'm on the road with Soulogy. I've been on the road since mid 2016. And to answer your question about my daughters, they didn't stay with me till the end of high school. In a very, I want to say almost seamless, but certainly an energetically comprehensible way, my family came and I would say in a positive way to support them, right? And so I went on the road with 11 Cents in 2016, October 13th. And then that progressed, and a few months later, she came. We went on a cross country thing. She went back. And then in the summer of 2018, everything seemed to be kicking up in May and June of every year. I started to notice the pattern that actually went back to 2009. And at that time, I had probably done I want to say about 350 shows. And, and she came in for another 12-week period. I was in Georgia. I was doing enough that I was starting to get donations that allowed, I'm saying like maybe $200 a week or something. I was renting this basement of a sister that invited me in a 1 acre lot in Georgia in this big old house. And so my partner came over and walked in the door. And again, the feminine part of us is the vision, is the dream, is the, you know what I mean? That's where it all starts. And she came in the door and said, if we're going to do this, let's do this. And we went from, I don't know, 5 shows a week I was doing maybe. We were doing, I would say over that next 3 or 4 months, we were doing about 90 a month. We
Wow.
were doing sometimes 5, 6 shows a day. And actually that went on for 5 years. I think the average until the summer of 23 was 67 shows a month. And then I kind of took off a couple of years, did about 10 a month. And then last May, here we go again, I kicked it back up. So we're doing about 40 to 45 a month now.
Wow.
But that's kind of how the whole thing evolved. It just evolved from words on a flip phone to a laptop. Now I can make images and play with paint and change the colors and move the text around. And I think I put up about 1,500 of those. And then I started doing the solos, and then it became the podcast, and of course sprinkled in between. There's Soulogy Soul Speak music videos. I was doing a lot of video production. When I would travel, we would do gatherings. I was doing everything live. I used to run into people and they'd tell me, don't go live. I don't want to go live with you because I was always going live, like knock on someone's door. I'm like, hey, it's Todd, you know. But yeah, just a great adventure that seemed to really culminate. I think really for all of us at the end of December in 2024, and my soul came in and said, you know, this 12-year period's up from the Mayan calendar. You guys came in and have accomplished everything that you set out to do, and you've done it in a distortion, and you don't even know you've done it. And now you're going to be swimming with the current. It's going to take a while to get used to it, but there will be instant reciprocity. There will be clear evidence that we are moving into a greater, and greater level of alignment. And it's still going to be some work, you know, but yeah, everything's shifted now. And I feel like that's what's happening.
Wow. Um, to get back to just your time, the 10 days in the hotel,
Mm,
I feel like that's when you really tapped into your sovereignty. You were probably being attacked by the dark side when you
mm,
were in the clubs, and at the same time experiencing the light side. And it just seems like you said when you went in to face both sides, you really were able to get the balance and
mm.
get tapped in and become sovereign, where nothing is going to kick you off your center.
Yeah. Um, yeah. And it was, you know, I do have some memories of it. I don't have vivid memories, but I do have the vivid energetic impression of the experience. And I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
Right.
And I'm not just saying that to blow smoke up, myself, but it was my way. And as I understand it with my soul, is that that's what I do. I go into the deepest parts of it and I go toe to toe with everything. And I understood early on in my communions post 2011 that it's you can only go as many degrees above the line as you've gone below the line. So um, I think you're right. That 10-day period was it was an epic period. It and we found out now in retrospect, so many of the epic periods that we've had didn't feel good to the human being.
Mhm.
Uh, but yes, that was one. The second one happened in 2016 because I had my girls in that townhouse that we shared alone for 2 years and 8 months, and there was still this wild journey of divergent energies, and at the surface level, human level, family dysfunction and involvement. And I had CPS, I had everything coming at me. I had all kinds of things happening, but I was also in communion, and even though I was the only one there, and my girls would look at me and be like, "We believe in you, but we don't know what the hell you're doing, Uh, but what happened during that 2 years and 8 months is throughout my homeless, and really up to even today, there's a bayou system that runs through Houston, and a lot of my encounters were on and around the bayou. And so these houses were around the bayou. And the one that we lived in for the 2 years and 8 months was right next to a cemetery. And I had already had experiences in the cemetery. So every night I would go walk out on the cemetery, and religiously. And there was one street on the cemetery that I would walk. The last thing I would do is I would walk down this street, and I called it the path of peace, the path of many trees, because I did a lot of communing with the trees. And so the second time this occurred, now in these cemetery visits every night, I'm running into everything from animals to non-physical beings to trees that are morphine to statues that are speaking. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff happening. And again, I can't prove it to anybody, but I had some extraordinary divine episodes that I could speak volumes to. But this one particular night, I didn't know that I was about to be expelled out into you know, I didn't know any of that. And I was walking down the street, the path of peace, and I was instructed, hold your arms out to the side, and repeat after me, kind of thing. It was kind of how it went, and it was to bring both hands into my heart, and every aspect of light and every aspect of dark. And so, for me, that was the second, but really the first one consciously. The second time that I really said, you know what, I don't have to prove to anybody, but I know I can. I'm here. I've got this. I've got this part of it. There's no exceptions. Like the old saying is, God doesn't make trash, right? So everything is me, kind of thing. And so that was the second one. And then the third one happened in 2021 in October the 10th, by the way. Wow, that's weird because my son's getting married on October the 10th. Yeah, it's going to be a 111 thing, right? 1010, and it's a 1 year. But it was October the 10th, 2021. I just gotten off of a podcast. And at the end of the podcast, the guest I had, who I'd done shows with before and was very galactic, kind of threw a bomb at me. and I kind of attributed it with him, but I realized right away, oh no, he was just my brother. Something's about to go down. So what ended up happening was immediately I get off this podcast, and it's I think late on a Friday, and I go lay on the couch. I felt something enter my body, and it was COVID.
Oh,
And so yeah, it was COVID, and so I laid on that couch for 4.5 days. Now at the same time this happened, at the same day, my brother Franco Di Nicola, he contracted COVID. Okay. And he ended up transitioning 10 days later, and he's played a big part in my life, as many other people. But I've had visitations with him and so on, and great exchanges, both when we were both here and now that we do it from each side of the veil. But I spent 4.5 days there. I lived by myself at the time. I had the whole breathing thing going on. I had the massive fever, and I didn't do anything but take a drink chicken soup. Uh, I knew that it wasn't the superficial. I knew that it was some kind of huge initiation. There was things coming in, but the final part of it, or the climax of it, was I was being asked to bring in all of this huge range of light beings and dark beings. And eventually, over 4.5 days, I got to the end of the line, and it was, it'd be light being, and then the dark being, and then the next level, and the next level. And I got to this level of this dark being who was on my left. And so I guess if you'd be like 1 white, 2 dark, so it's an even number, right? It was like the end. And it's this dark being that was on like a dragon horse that was dark black with, red fire, and, just this really, really auspicious thing. And it was, are you going to take me in your heart? And I said, yeah, I'm going to take you in my heart. And then when that happened, one appeared on the right side, which was the polar of that. It was this incredible white, feminine. I mean, it was just this beautiful thing, and so they both came into my heart. And that's, I would say those are the 3 initiations. Maybe there'll be another one, but it is a constant thing for me every day, in one form or another, to take on anything that's uncomfortable, and or a person or whatever the case is, and take it into my heart. Meaning, this is my creation. This is my responsibility. What thoughts I carry forward. It's never them. It's always me, and that's not a bypass. That's taking accountability and responsibility, not just for my life, but for my impact on the field. So that's kind of, my message, I guess, is, I was told when I was given Soulogy on March the 10th of 2012, which, by the way, ended up being my wife's birthday, which I wouldn't know for 3 or 4 years. Uh, that, I said, well, what is Soulogy? And I was told the other side of truth. And I said, the other side of truth. Well, what is that? Well, you'll figure it out. And then I'd get a few, they'd drop me this or drop me that. And one of the things they said was everybody's in Soulogy. Everybody, even if they don't want to be. It's an infinite circus tent. So this affected me from the root, because 4 days later, on the 14th of March, 2012, which was my daughter's birthday, which this is all these coincidences, which are very important, right? These synchronicities. I was told no rules. You just open it up and invite everything and entertain everything. And it was pretty weird, coming from an environment, especially my corporate career, where I was very structured and I was very effective, and to have this micromanaging, this thing where, you turn over every rock. And, this is why I was so successful at it, because I was able to drill down to the nth degree and other things, other attributes that I had, but I couldn't apply that here. And so the reason I mention that is because that's always kind of been the way it's flowed. I have shared to a lot of groups over the years, and recently I got kicked out of a few because I put up a lot of posts. It's nothing inflammatory or anything like that. It's just they have rules, and you can't put up, what I mean? So, and that's okay. I'm just saying that this has been what's been behind, or what's been seeded from Soulogy from the beginning, is to invite all parties to everything. Whatever, and give into that third energy, which to me is Soulogy, or the Holy Spirit, or whatever you want to call it, right? God consciousness, whatever you want to call it, and allow it to do its thing, because it can't do its thing unless we engage it. And I think that's what's happening now. We're starting to, individually and together, we're starting to engage this energy. We're starting to let go of control and expectations, and really find this band of frequencies that's rooted in creativity and spontaneity and intuition and imagination and courage, of course, and love, of course. But so that's been something I think that's kind of been characteristic of Soulogy as a seed. I think the other thing is authenticity, vulnerability. You have this group that's just like any other Facebook group on the surface, very high level of engagement, doesn't have hundreds of thousands. We've got, I think, about 175,000 people across YouTube and the Facebook page and the group and blah, blah, blah. But, I just remember, putting the post out, more people would come in. Now we've got, like in 2016, I think we had 18,000, and then it would just kind of go up and go up and go up. And eventually they stopped us at 50 on the Facebook group, and that lasted about 4 years. And then somehow or another we broke through when I kicked the show back up last year. But what I was saying is, it was like, I would make these spirit walks, and I'd be like, hey, this is TODD Medina, SoulogyOneStudios. I'm just going to emulate what I did on the streets by myself, and I'm just going to share it with you. Today, let's talk about patience, or, whatever the case is, whatever my soul, it was all just freestyle. Mm-hmm. And then next thing you know, because this is back when people just started doing lives, right? Just started making videos. Then all of a sudden, I'd open up the Facebook group, and there'd be Mick Rogers in Adelaide, Australia, standing in a shower, tiling a shower and breaking into an Elvis song, or there'd be somebody would come on. And I remember Jenna Harmon from Australia. She came on, and she, she was kind of heavy, she struggled with weight. She struggled with some other things. She came on, no makeup, and just went total, rogue. And I mean rogue in the sense of the soul, like atypical, unconventional, bore her soul. and just more and more people, and watching that energy, uh, watch it's contagious. Watching it expand, allowing that third energy to do its part, and that's been the biggest thing for me. My partner says that Soulogy. She said to me one time, what does Soulogy mean?" I said, "The other side of truth." That's what they told me. But she said it's transformation. That's what it is, and I've come to really appreciate that, because transformation happens in any given moment. I feel like that, the only thing that's not certain is what's about to happen, and where does that happen? It happens right here. Uh, and so that's, we joked about this earlier, but that's why there's no spit and polish to the productions Todd's been involved in. Now, I've done video productions and made imagery and made it work and that type of thing, but that was actually spontaneous too. Uh, I can tell you, making music videos several times, uh, I'm going, how did that happen? How did the last word end on the last note? Or how did this have this blinking going on every time the bass beat come in? Where did that come from? Because this was long before the AI apps and all that. Um, but yeah, there's this third energy has been there waiting for us and is always there. And I look at it this way: we all came into this thing, or this series of incarnations, or this incarnation, which I think is a summary life, where all of them are concentrated into this particular life, where you're April and I'm Todd, and we carry all of that with us, right? So we all came in with the Trinity within us. We all came in with the sacred union within us, and then we forgot, God's with amnesia, and now we're coming back to full awareness. And so the equation is what we brought in with us, what we experienced, equals new creation. So we're starting to value these experiences and find the code in the shadow, you might say, and really look at all of our life with reverence and honor and grace, and understand, oh my God, this is perfection. And now we can utilize uh, the code that we've gained to create things that have never been created before. I feel like that's what we're doing. And I'm not saying that's the gospel truth for everybody, but that's the truth I follow. I don't know how I got off on that tangent. I think I drank too much coffee.
Wow, there are so many topics I'd like to get into with you, but I can tell you that I've had so many of my own woo-woo metaphysical experiences that it's so nice to talk to someone else that's also had them. I think that it's important for people to really start opening up to the fact that they're more than 3D, that we're multi-dimensional.
Yeah, I would say that's the third element that's really stood out with the the wake of Soulogy, you might say. What its imprints been, or footprint, has been exactly what you just said, and that is, I can't tell you how many comments, how many messages, or emails I've received and many of these from. It's so crazy because a butterfly came and now a hummingbird's coming. And this is part of what's happening, and I don't care what people say. This is part of it.
Yeah.
But I remember receiving an email from a lady, and this will kind of encapsulate what I'm saying. She says, "I've been watching your show for whatever, like 2 years or something, and um, I've never thought about coming on. Um, since I was a kid, I've been being visited by a unicorn and a couple of other elemental types. Right? Uh, no one ever believed me. Uh, Somehow or another, I made it through. Being institutionalized, whatever, put in a psych ward. And here's my story. And no, I don't want to come on, but I wanted to tell you, thank you. I wanted to tell you and your partner, thank you for the show, because I thought I was the only one. And the way I found Soulogy was I was flipping on YouTube and I came to you and you're talking to this lady. And she's talking about since she was a little kid, she's having these galactics come in, these ETs come in. And she said, I thought that was the craziest thing. She said, that's never happened to me. And then she said, the light went off. And she said, wait a minute. Well, that's what happened to her. Mine were with elementals. These are my people. This is my tribe. And she said, I've been tuned in ever since. And although I don't have the same exact experience others do, but it's the same field of possibilities, the same field of reality that we're finding. So many people have said to me, I thought I was the only one. Nothing thrills me more, especially with the sisters, because that's really what's been suppressed, but nothing thrills me more than to, I was going to say, persuade or whatever I had to do to get one to come on for the first time and speak her truth. It's a powerful, amazing thing. And if you look at your platform, if you look at Soulogy, if you look at the bulk of the platforms out there of this movement, we might call this transition, we call ascension, or whatever you want to call it. I've studied the demographics. I'm a metrics freak since I was in my corporate days. I can tell you from when I came off the streets in 2013 and started looking at them, 95, 96% of these groups were female. And everything is symbolic, right? It doesn't mean that every one of them is walking. This is the field. This is the read. I've watched it go to about 70-30 now. My point is this: 80% of the field that makes up these platforms are sisters that you'll never see on video, that you'll see commenting and liking, that you may not even ever know, okay? But they're all over this world, okay? And that means something. That means something huge to me because I do see it as energy. I don't see it as literal. I can tell you, like I said earlier, I literally disappeared off the algorithms. And Soulogy group had been stuck at 50,000 for, 4 years. And with massive output of posts and videos. And so when I made up my mind last year in mid-May, I was told it's time to get back on this horse. We're about to drive this thing down the home stretch. That first month of June, just on Facebook, we pulled in 4.5 million views. Somehow or another, we came in under the algorithm, and the real energy, the Soulogy, the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, the third energy, the golden child energy, assisted us, assisted the pure intention, unconditional love, this impact that we can have, and just, I think it increased to like 80,000 in that 30 days. And then, 4 months later, they sent me some love letters and we've been shadow banned again. But it doesn't bother me because the energetic field is the reality. Mm-hmm. And to your point, as well about the multidimensionality. It's not just a pretty word or a pretty connotation or a pretty idea. It's the real thing. So my message now is become more fortified, more specific to the times. And again, this is through my soul's guidance. And that is that, bilocation, teleportation, remote viewing, past life memories, future life memories, or whatever. This is the norm. This is not some aberration. So when I look at the larger platforms that have millions and hundreds of thousands, I see, and I'm not throwing shade at anybody, I'm just making a point. And my point is that the clickbait, sensationalism, aberration-esque type of presentation, like, oh, this is very, very, unique, and which is, to me, is just another way to imprint separation and division. Oh, I'm not like her and she's not like me. my goal is to make mainstream that this is normal.
Hmm.
It's normal to have my friend that lives in Israel, who's probably about 65. I'm not going to mention her name because I could pull so many out of my hat, to be honest with you. But her story is very common. You know, she's married, she's got children, she's in her late 20s, and all of a sudden she gets a download. And this is probably in the 90s, right? And next thing you know, she's living in a room by herself. She's moved to another country. She's interacting with all kinds of aspects, and she's paying attention to these series of voices in her head. And so when you have one, and then 10, and then 100, and then 1,000, you know,
Hmm.
and they all have the same template and the same ultimate message, that this was going the same prophecy. Okay, and I question everything, but it feels right to me, uh, and I feel like that's the message that I feel like that's the message I've been stewarded to put out there and support, is to say this is reality. You know, well, you and I could go to Venus for lunch today. I mean, you know, there's all kinds of. We talked about a dream. You had a vision. I told you about my friend's dream that she sent me. All these synchronicities, all these things are pulling together now. So this is the real story. This is the real disclosure. It's not about tech, and it's not about ET's landing, and you know, it's all of it. But all of it is us, and that's really how this thing's being flipped. But yeah, I think the mother's energy is fully marinated in the earth and turned on, and you know, we're kind of moving into the no BS zone now. And anyone that knows, and most of us do, you know, we all have a mother, um, regardless of our stories. You know, there's no exceptions. Um, but you know, most of the families that I ran into growing up, everybody was scared of the father. There's no doubt about it. A man raises his voice, but when the mother had had enough, everybody better watch out,
What?
including the father. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So mama's home.
Um, the most profound metaphysical experience that I've ever had was almost 10 years ago now. And I actually had the great cosmic mother
Yeah.
downloaded her codes into my heart center. And I was told that that galactic energy, the divine feminine, was connected in through my heart portal, and that that would then be connected at certain points on the ley lines in the crystalline grid.
See, this is a great example too. I think you know, for two reasons. One, again, you start to see this common denominator in people's stories. You know what I mean? It's one thing to hear it. You know, I know people listen to me. All of our families kind of put us at arm's length. You know, many of us have been in the psych ward or incarcerated. Me both. You know, I mean, so you know, the other reason I think it's important too is because of the frequency, uh, the accelerating frequency of these things being shared.
Mhm.
Um, you know, the timing, you might say. There's more and more there. I told you earlier, things really started to pick up in February for me. And for about 5 or 6 weeks, I would sit at the beach in Mexico every night. And although I've had many divine episodes, this was the first time a group of celestial beings started talking to me. And it was all about this evolution, kind of a history that involved Sirius. It involved Orion's belt specifically, identified as the 0 point of that constellation where the energy was congregated to then push forward, okay, which went to really to Pleiades, but Aldebaran being a part of it, and so on. Uh, that I've heard in other ways this year from other people. So these, like the stars told me in those exchanges, you're looking at your history, but you're also looking at your roadmap. If you look behind you, look before you. It's going to be the same thing, right? It's going to be the same pattern recognition. You know, we spend so much time going, oh, I don't want to make a wrong decision. No, it's not about that because you make a choice. And every time we make a choice, be it a belief, be it an action, a thought, whatever, the universe always meets us with the same components, you know, grace, wisdom, love, unconditional, you know, purity. I mean, it's just like you said earlier. The only way to learn anything is through the experience of it. That's the whole thing. How do we find greater awareness of ourselves? By experiencing things. The question it becomes, what do you want to experience? How much influence do you have on that? Do you have full dominion over that? These are not judgmental things that I suggest here. These are things that I believe that we didn't just come here to awaken. We've done this, you know. We've been in. Yeah, it's not our first rodeo here, but what do we do with it now? And I feel that this is the most spectacular time the multiverses have ever seen, uh, because this is the highest level of density and concentration and universal seeding that's ever occurred. So I feel like, you know, I talk, you know, like most of us, I talk to myself all day, and I'll say, you know, yeah, are you open to the fact that you could be wrong? Absolutely. I could be worm dirt when this is over, and there is no soul. But there's another part of me that never leaves, that's always beating, that says, no, no, this is the game on, okay, game on. So, what do we want to do with it? I really feel like that, you know, what you were talking about, where you're at. So many of us here to serve. That's my mantra every day. You know, how can I serve? Um, there seems to be somewhat of a shift happening now, which is, I can only explain it the way I've experienced it as the months have gone on since February. Just show up, Todd. And now it's become beyond verbalization. And I'll give you a quick example. I'm in Mexico, and I started having this stuff happen February 7th. Well, on March the 3rd, and I'm having outstanding communions with white animals and the stars I told you about and so on every night at the beach. And so on the 3rd of October um, is the blood eclipse. It's the second eclipse in that corridor back then. And I end up having 15 grand mal seizures in 10 hours.
Whoa.
And it was, I'd had a history of them my whole life, like 200 of them. But I hadn't had any in 14 years. And so immediately I have three out of bodies while I'm doing it. It's a 10-hour ordeal. And I'm getting all this information and the things that happen when we get downloads. Shortly after that, I'm told you're going to the mountains. I'm like, I've been here for 20 months. I mean, yeah, I'm living by myself, and you know, and it's a very, you know, Spartan and lifestyle, and I'm okay with it. But whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. And so quickly that turned into, you're going back to the United States. We want you to go into the mountains. We want you to go into the belly of the beast, and with an open heart, and others will meet you there. You know, as I do, sometimes you know, that's as good as it gets as far as specifics. So, but then, you know, as you commit, then things started happening. Next thing I know, I'm in Santa Fe, and I'm with my beloved sister, and now we're traveling into these different mountains, and I keep, you know, the third energy is showing the way, unfolding organically. And the reason I bring this up is because even as I mentioned, we're going to have a Soulogy Fest in near Cripple Creek, Colorado, in late September, which was also I was told to do. Uh, my point is that what I've been getting since February, more and more and more, is a lessening of instruction, lessening of look at me, uh, more of just coming together in these spots, as you talked about, where you go and you share code and pick up code when you do your grid work, as you were instructed from that point 10 years ago, understanding that you're dropping, you know what I mean? So we're coming together now. And that's all it's going to take. We're like a bunch of tuning forks. And just like they told me after the solstice in 24, you guys accomplished what you came to accomplish. You don't even know it yet. Like energetically, you did this in the distortion, and the impact is going to be huge. And the last thing I would add to that, and I think a lot of people, well, more and more people that I'm running into are what I would say moving into a greater abundance, which is far more than money. It's love, it's trust, it's resources, it's fellowship, it's so many things. But my understanding from my interaction, my communion post winter solstice 24 is that we were in a distortion, and the efforts that you put out didn't come back at that time. And so not only are you going to have an instant manifestation and reciprocation, you're also going to get all that energy that's stored in your energetic savings account, and it's all coming on. So I feel like that the landscape's changing very rapidly, and we've come this far, all of us weirdos and crazies and all that stuff, but crazy isn't crazy anymore, right? Why would we stop listening to that inner voice now?
Mm-hmm.
And now we've got this above telepathic network that's starting to click, 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 just like the story you told me before we came online. And I told you, well, guess what happened last night? I got a message from a sister. These are not coincidences.
Right.
It's not a coincidence at all. And it's not a coincidence to me that we're doing this today. And again, thank you very much for this, because it is the right time.
Mm-hmm.
It's the perfect time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah. So thank
All
you
in
for that.
divine perfection, divine
Mm,
timing. Yes.
mm,
Um, I I have literally
mm.
two more pages of topics and questions I wanted to talk to you about, but
Mm.
we are at a time when we should probably wrap it up. So
That's fine.
I would love
Mm.
to get you on again so that we could.
I'm I'm game. I, I'm
Wonderful.
really game, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I was moved about a month ago to go on to sit in the other chair,
Uh-huh.
and so I just really appreciate the opportunity to do that. Uh, it might take me some getting used to, but yeah, I'm certainly up for it. You just let me know, and we'll schedule it, and I'll be happy to
Oh,
do this again with you. Very
great.
much.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Mm.
much. It's been such an honor and I feel very privileged to be able to connected with you.
Well, I feel like we certainly recognize each other.
Oh yeah.
I can see you. I can see my sister. I can see
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, thank you so much, and thank you to your audience, and I look forward to further collaborations, and until the next time.
All
So,
righty. Bye
okay.
bye.